Welcome to Flash Core, your sharpest source for daily headlines and deep dives. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay ahead of the curve. A major new trade policy is shaking the global economy. Former President Donald Trump has announced sweeping tariffs on goods imported into the United States. The centerpiece, a massive 50% tariff on copper imports, alarming many industries. This is part of a broader plan affecting dozens of nations and a wide variety of products, signaling a more aggressive phase in America's trade strategy. Canada, a close ally, faces a new 35% tariff, while over 70 other countries will see new taxes ranging from 15 to 40%. The Trump administration claims these tariffs will protect American jobs and boost the economy by encouraging domestic manufacturing. Some countries, like Mexico, have a 90-day grace period for negotiations, but others, such as India and Brazil, face immediate duties. The scope is vast. Beyond copper, sectors like footwear are also targeted, sending shockwaves through international supply chains. Businesses and governments worldwide are scrambling to adapt to the sudden policy shift. As deadlines approach, the global market braces for economic fallout. The world is watching as America redraws the rules of trade. At the heart of this trade offensive is a 50% tariff on all semi-finished copper products, effective August 1, 2025. This tax stacks on top of existing tariffs, making imported copper far pricier for U.S. companies. The Commerce Secretary can expand the list within 90 days, potentially broadening the impact. Finished cars and auto parts are exempt, maintaining their existing 25% tariff, a move to shield the U.S. auto industry. The administration plans phase tariffs on refined copper in 2027 and 2028, plus a new rule requiring 25% of copper inputs and scrap to be sold domestically. The timing of this domestic sales rule remains unclear, adding uncertainty for copper-dependent businesses. By targeting copper, the policy disrupts industries from electronics to construction. The high tariff rate is meant to force companies to rethink supply chains and sourcing. The result, a complex, challenging environment for any business relying on stable copper supplies. The Trump administration justifies the copper tariff on national security grounds. A Section 232 investigation found the U.S. dangerously dependent on foreign copper, posing a security risk. Copper is vital for defense and infrastructure, making a stable domestic supply essential. The tariffs aim to boost U.S. mining and production, reducing vulnerability to foreign disruptions. President Trump frames these measures as part of restoring America's economic power. The administration believes taxing imports will revive domestic manufacturing and create high-paying jobs. Critics question the security risk, but the official rationale is firm. America must secure its own supply of critical materials. The copper tariff is presented as a crucial step toward national independence and security. These new tariffs mark a shift from Trump's first-term trade tactics. Previously, tariffs were bargaining chips in targeted negotiations. Now, the approach is broad and rigid. The 50% copper tariff applies globally, not just to rivals, signaling a move from bilateral pressure to sweeping policy change. The administration is less interested in exemptions, aiming instead to restructure global trade on America's terms. National security is now the central justification, making the tariffs harder to challenge internationally. This approach asserts the U.S. right to act unilaterally, regardless of trade agreements or allies' objections. The result, a more confrontational, unpredictable environment for global business. Tariffs now seem like a permanent feature, not a temporary negotiating tool. Other countries must choose, accept the new terms, or risk a costly trade war. The 50% copper tariff has rattled American businesses. Companies using copper, from construction to electronics, face soaring costs. They must either absorb these costs, hurting profits, or raise prices, fueling inflation. Higher copper prices mean more expensive homes, appliances, and electronics for consumers. The Federal Reserve warns these tariffs could worsen inflation and slow economic growth. Uncertainty makes long-term planning difficult, causing companies to delay investments and hiring. U.S. manufacturers paying more for copper risk losing competitiveness abroad and at home. Foreign products could become cheaper than American-made goods, even in the U.S. market. In trying to protect some industries, the tariffs threaten many others that rely on global trade. The business community is bracing for tough choices and potential setbacks. The ripple effects could be felt across the entire economy. Major U.S. corporations are already feeling the impact of the new tariffs. Companies like Procter & Gamble, reliant on global supply chains, face rising production costs. They must decide whether to absorb these costs or pass them on to consumers, risking lost sales. Harley-Davidson, often targeted in trade disputes, faces new challenges as foreign retaliation makes its motorcycles pricier overseas. Retaliatory tariffs have already hurt profits for these iconic brands. The new wave of tariffs could worsen their situation, threatening jobs and investment. When industry giants struggle, the effects ripple through the economy. Lower stock prices, reduced investment, and potential layoffs. These corporate warnings highlight the real, immediate financial impact of tariffs. The stakes are high for both businesses and workers. The tariff policy is no longer just theory, it's hitting home. Canada, America's close ally, is furious over the new tariffs, especially the 35% general rate and the 50% copper tariff. In response, Canada threatens $125 billion in retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods. This is no empty gesture. It's a calculated move to inflict real economic pain. Canada's countermeasures would target a wide range of American exports, from agriculture to manufacturing. Past disputes show Canada strategically hits products from key U.S. political districts. American farmers, factory workers, and businesses that depend on the Canadian market would be hit hard. Instead of forcing concessions, Trump's strategy risks provoking a full-blown trade war. Canada's threat is a direct challenge, showing allies won't accept new terms without a fight. The standoff raises the stakes for both economies. A trade war with Canada would be devastating for both nations, whose economies are deeply linked. Industries like autos rely on cross-border supply chains, with parts moving back and forth multiple times. Tariffs would act as a tax at every step, raising costs and causing major disruptions. The US and Canada trade over $2 billion daily. Millions of American jobs depend on this relationship. Canada's $125 billion retaliation would hit U.S. workers and businesses, especially in northern states. Tariffs mean higher prices for consumers on both sides. Everything from lumber to electronics could cost more. Inflation and a higher cost of living would follow, hurting families and economic prosperity. This isn't a minor dispute. It's a threat to one of the world's most successful economic partnerships. Prolonged conflict would create uncertainty, reduce investment, and risk job losses. The Trump administration now faces a tough choice: escalate or seek compromise. The outcome will shape the future of North American trade. As the August 1st tariff deadline nears, global uncertainty grows. Final details are still in flux, making it hard for businesses to plan or invest. The biggest risk: a cycle of retaliation, as Canada's $125 billion threat demonstrates. A tit-for-tat trade war could fracture international cooperation and damage alliances. The world faces two paths: de-escalation through negotiation, or a deepening conflict. Compromise could restore stability and predictability, but would require diplomacy from all sides. If the US pushes ahead and Canada retaliates, both economies and the world could suffer. Consumers would pay more, businesses would struggle, and growth would slow. The administration hopes for long-term gains, but many fear lasting harm to the economy and key relationships. The world is watching to see which path America will choose. The stakes for global trade have never been higher.